All right, grade 8s, let's talk about why Japan chose to isolate. You looked at the geography, who they're nearby, you saw that they were in contact with Korea, trading with them, with China, they'd even gone so far as the Philippines. They had European merchants, the Portuguese came to trade with them, they got the firearms from the Portuguese and manufactured them themselves. So now why? You went through the memoirs of the Secret Empire with the shoguns, saw how Tokugawa Ieyasu came from a boy all the way up to becoming shogun. So now why does the Tokugawa shogunate chose to isolate? What are their reasons for it? Okay. They had trade, peace is now in the country with the shogunate rule. So why are they going to stop themselves from trading an outside world? What's the biggest reasons? If you look at page 134, it talks about the foreign influences. Maybe now they're worried that there's been so much foreign influence that people will start to want that. They might question what the Tokugawa shogunate has set up as far as the ruling system, that they are in control. The shogunate, not the emperor, sorry. The shogun actually has the military power with the samurai. The emperor is just a figurehead. He has a divine right to rule as they think, but right now the shogun has full control because they have such a strong samurai that's conquered everybody else. So maybe they don't want people looking elsewhere for power and leadership. Biggest influence probably is Christianity. When the Portuguese came and other Europeans came, they brought the missionaries, the Jesuits, and they've spread the word of God, Christianity. They've converted over 150,000 Japanese between 1549 and 1587. So now it's the early 1600s, and the Tokugawa shogunate's probably saying, hey, if these people continue to follow Christianity, they may not like the class system that we've put in place, where we actually have ruling elite. Not just the emperor has always been there, but now the shogunate. The shogun, the samurai, the daimyo, the bakufu, they've got all this military control of the country now. These people might look at that and go, well, that's not the word of God. That's not how Christianity is telling me. So they banned all Jesuits. They kicked them out. They said, no more spreading Christianity. We're going to go back to our roots, our own faith. Look at Confucianism, Buddhism, other different religions, not Christianity. So they kick them out. That's probably the biggest one. They came up with a document, an edict, which if you look on page 135 talks about a legal order, a command that everybody has to follow. And on page 136, it talks about what rules they put in place. This is a condensed form, but they listed rules that people had to follow or else. All right, Grace, continue where I left off. I was just talking about why Japan chose to isolate itself and why the shogunate, the Tokugawa shogunate chose that. They didn't want influence from the outside world now that they had power and control through the military. So they came up with this closed country edict, and it's on page 136, and it talks about strict rules that have to be followed or else. So no Japanese ships are strictly forbidden to travel to foreign countries. So no more traveling, no more trading. That is forbidden. That everything has to be within their own country. So there goes the past 50 plus years of trading and getting goods from the outside world. We talk about what the Spaniards did. Renaissance time with the Italian city-states and the Silk Road. Everybody else is trading, getting new ideas, contact with other groups, influence and ideas, but Japan has said no more. No Japanese permitted to go aboard, and anyone who attempts to leave is going to be executed. Executed. You cannot leave the country and go elsewhere. Strictly forbidden, close the borders off. If Japanese return from overseas after residing there, they'll be put to death. So if you've left and lived somewhere else, you can't come back. Why? Well, you're going to have different ideas of how other countries rule and their class structure. The southern barbarians, the Westerners, as they said, they cannot teach Christianity. They would be put in prison if they tried to. They kicked all the Jesuits out, the missionaries, but some stayed anyway. and were staying in hiding because there were still groups that 150,000 of the converted people still wanted it. So they were doing it in their own hideouts, but they would be put in prison if they were caught. No single trading city shall be permitted, all the purchases from foreign ships. So they can't go out to ships, but they knew they needed goods. So, again, going against almost their own edict here, they had some ships from certain places come in and with certain goods, but they couldn't come on the land. People would go on the ships and get what they needed, but the foreigners weren't allowed to come on land. So they closed the borders to anybody coming in, but they knew being on an island with limited farm and resources that they needed to trade for the goods they couldn't do themselves, and that was it. Excuse me. Portuguese ships are banned from Japanese ports. Any disobedience will be executed. The Portuguese, the reason, just like the Spaniards, because they brought religion with them. They knew they had firepower because they introduced the gun, the rifle, the firearm to the Japanese. So they're getting rid of them. They started trading with other European areas like the Dutch that they weren't so worried about, but they knew that Portuguese is pretty strong with all they've done and everywhere else they've gone. We talked about that. Spain didn't go there, but they also knew about Spain. So they're trying to get the powers to stay away. England and France hadn't come there yet. So they're trying to keep out any of the strong European nations that we've talked about before. So they're closing their borders, while at the same time, in the Renaissance, things are booming, right? In Italian city-states and in Europe. People are trading through ocean ports, river ports, and through land. Spain is out exploring, but they're taking the word of God, what Japan was afraid of. The God, glory, and gold. Japan doesn't want that. The Aztecs are also expanding, but they're kind of like Japan. They're in their own little isolated area, and they don't know about the rest of the world, but they also don't care about the rest of the world. They're doing their own thing. So Japan closed their borders because of mostly the influence of the European, the spreading of Christianity, but they were also afraid of other class systems and ideas that may be brought back or people might have learned from others. So you're going to read about this, make some notes, and then you're going to do the class structure yourself, and you're eventually going to do a research on the class structure, the social hierarchy, and give me an explanation on a couple different class systems, what their life was like. Maybe do a video if you want, however you want to show me at least two class structures of what people's life was like under the Tokugawa shogunate and the Edo Japan. Thank you.